What's going on, guys? Back again with the Winning Brown podcast. It has been a while and it has been a hectic, very crazy last 2, 3 months for both of us, as it has been for the NFL. But we are back with the Winning Browns podcast, where two Indian kids try to win more Super Bowls than the Browns will, and the Browns are not even a consideration in this point. Right now, we're talking about a team who could win their record seventh Super Bowl just a few years after we thought that they were going into a full-on rebuild versus a very familiar team for my 49ers, a rival, a team that has built themselves into one of the most formidable defenses and one of the most formidable offenses in the league. Just a completely well-rounded oil machine. And it set us up for a very interesting Super Bowl. Deja vu to one of the greatest Super Bowls of all time. Something that I know Akhilesh Super Bowl is very fond of, as I am myself. One of the first few Super Bowls that I ever got to watch from start to finish. Certainly, it is going to be a very interesting um, Super Bowl upcoming this week, as we have also an interesting preliminary episode for you guys to kind of introduce you guys to the Super Bowl today. And I know Akhilesh and I are both excited for today's episode. But Akhilesh, how have you been over the last couple months, and how have you reacted to this crazy end of the season and the playoffs as far as football goes?
Yeah, I mean, look, the past couple of months has been nothing but, intense, really busy. As you guys know, both of us are in our sophomore year of university right now, and compared to freshman year, I think everybody who has been through college or is going through college can certainly say that as the years progress, the tougher it gets. So we definitely felt that this past fall semester, but we're definitely going to try to shape up things. You guys are going to see a lot of changes in our channel, the way we proceed, the way we work, and it's going to benefit the podcast as a whole. In regards to the NFL, I mean, if we're really looking at the playoffs, we've seen, I think for me, two sides of things, and I'm really happy to say this, defense rules. And I mean, we really have seen that. When it comes to the Rams, Ryan Clark on ESPN, he kind of made the perfect take. I'm confident about the Rams except their defensive backs, and that got exposed. Sam Darnold, I mean, say what you want, be a Stephen A if you will, but he has been nothing but extraordinary during this playoffs. And I mean, I get it. He choked once in the playoffs against the Rams, but he didn't look back on that at all, clearly. I mean, I think it was what 334, three touchdowns, around 60 to 70% completion rate. I mean, he was nothing but a top-notch
The game of his life.
quarterback. Game of his life for sure. The situation, I mean, he outplayed Matthew Stafford, who had what 4,700, 40 touchdowns at what 37, 38 years old. I mean, he outplayed Matthew Stafford. He outplayed Puka Nacua. What a story for Cooper Kupp. But more than anything else, and I personally, I'm saying this really in a proud way. When Mike McDonald got hired to be the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, I think, more confidently than I have with almost any hire and said this guy is going to do some great things. And I mean, he clearly has. To take a team in your second year, 14-3 after the release of a man who's really heralded the organization for a long time, like Pete Carroll, to bring them back to the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just an incredible story by him. He's what, 38 years of age right now, 36 years old. He was hired as the youngest head coach in the history of the Seattle Seahawks to bring them to what is there now. I mean, it's an incredible story. When you look at the Patriots too, we will get into our Super Bowl discussion later on, so I don't want to go too much into it right now.
For sure.
However, in regards to big news, we can't skip over Bill Belichick. Now, you guys know, right? When it comes to me, I'm a Chargers fan at heart now because I just love Harbaugh, what he stands for, the Chargers as a whole. And by the way, super excited for our team now. We got the best offensive coordinator on the market. We got possibly one of the better defensive coordinators on the market. We'll discuss that in later episodes. Now, when it comes to coaching, for me, I love coaching just as much as I love the play. For Bill Belichick not to be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame is not just it's not just disrespect. It's a embarrassment, and more than anything else, it's disrespectful to football as a whole. The reason why I say that is this. Jimmy Johnson made a great point. When you think about football, you think about Bill Belichick. You could
100%.
say Don Shula, Tom Landry. You could bring back to Paul Brown and the guy who created the entire NFL Combine. But no one represents football more than Bill Belichick. If anybody was to read a book and gain knowledge on football, they would gain most out of reading any book by Bill Belichick. For him not to be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame is an absolute embarrassment. It's ridiculous. And it's just standing for what the Pro Football Hall of Fame has been. I mean, honestly, like me and Yash were talking about this yesterday, and Yash made a great point. And I don't mind, I don't want to speak for you, but he made a great point where he mentioned that when you look at a lot of the guys who voted, right, or who didn't vote for Belichick, they're not really sports analysts. Rather, who they are a lot of people who are trying to make it to the Foxes, to the big networks, right? As as a you know
Political reporter.
reporter for a politics, right? Exactly.
Mhm.
So they don't really care, the way they should care about the sport. Not enough, clearly. I mean, Yash was discussing this yesterday. He made a great point too, where he said, "Look, if one vote doesn't fall into play, it's a tradition of the Hall of Fame where one guy's going to have the sympathy vote for some player in the 1923 season to admit him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame over Bill Belichick." Fine. I mean, that would have shocked me because I think Bill Belichick is a unanimous Hall of Famer, as I think anybody would.
Right.
But for 11 people to say no is absolutely ridiculous. And I don't want to take too much time, and I'll hand it over to you, Yash, but I'll stand with one point. Bill Polian should never be allowed to talk about football again. The man created two teams. Look, I'll give it to you. He created a Buffalo Bills team that was very good, an incredible offense with a very, aggressive defense. He had a Colts team that was really good too, Peyton Manning, the whole smeal. Man won one Super Bowl and lost five. He can't even count the number of. He can't even hold out two hands for the number of Super Bowls. Belichick has eight, eight, and he can't count on both hands the number of Super Bowls he's been to. And now you're telling me this guy now has the Bill Polian all of a sudden is the almighty world leader who tells people that there's a reason why he shouldn't be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. For anybody who's still on this Deflategate thing, look, I'm a Patriots. I do have to support the Patriots. I am from Boston. And I could be biased in saying this, but you can't prove me wrong. Deflategate, show me one piece of actual evidence where the ball pressure of the ball was different between the halftime and after the game. Show me
If I
one
remember
evidence.
correctly, the NFL came out and themselves and said that they had no evidence involving Deflategate being true to be able to truly punish Belichick and Brady for that matter. And they ended up punishing Brady, not
Brady.
suspending Belichick. So I don't really understand where the punishment
The
comes for
the
Belichick.
Deflategate is just some hysteria that people are still building up in their stupid little minds. The second problem with this is the Spygate. Now, Spygate is an interesting situation where I do have to honestly agree that Belichick could have been seen as, cheating in this way, right? I give you that. Fine. But don't act like Stickum wasn't a cheat gate. I don't know if many people know this. There's actually in back in the 1970s, a lot of players, especially on the Raiders, would use Stickum. Lester Hayes, one of the most famous cornerbacks of all time on the Raiders, would use this powder or almost this ointment, like a spray called Stickum. And essentially, whenever he caught the ball or even touched the ball as a deflection, it would just stick onto his hands. That man is being constantly thought of into being to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All those Raiders teams in the 1970s under John Madden cheated like anything. And now you're calling Spygate? Jimmy Johnson himself said, as on the Dallas Cowboys, they used to do it a lot. And now Bill Belichick's not in the Hall of Fame because of that. For me, Josh, personally, I feel this is personally more than anything else a disrespect to football, disrespect to sports, disrespect on the legacy of what it means to be great. So I'll stop with that. But
I'll give two additional things. I mean, Akilish kind of spoke for a lot of what my points were, so I don't have much other to say than just kind of rant on this, and I will just a sec. But I'll add 2 points to what you're saying. First off, with the Bill Polian thing, I know Bill Polian did vote Belichick into the Hall of Fame, but as Akilish alluded
then
to,
why does he make that
um,
reason? Is
correct.
the one that yeah.
Well, as Akhilesh alluded to, Polian was rumored to have, and he probably denies this, but he has been rumored to have started the conversation as to the whole Spygate cheating and whatnot. The fact of the matter is that conversation for someone as with a pedigree like Belichick should never be in consideration. Not only for the fact that as Akhilesh said, Spygate was one instance where um, I mean, the best you could really do to punish Belichick there is say that he knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it, but there was nothing where he was directly involved in it. In the Deflategate thing, as we both said, there was not much that Belichick himself really did that could be punished there, right? There's no evidence of anything. Even if you want to say there's suspicion about that and whatnot, I want to give one thing that I just thought of that kind of tarnishes the legacy of a first ballot Hall of Famer. Belichick, by any means, there are three coaches in NFL history who have been first ballot Hall of Famers. They're Don Shula, Tom Landry, and Chuck Noll. For a lot of people that don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers in the 1970s, one of the greatest dynasties of all time.
Wait,
Um,
Yash, I don't mean to interject. Bill
sure.
Walsh and Joe Gibbs are not first
No,
ballot Hall of
I'll get to
Famers.
that, and I will get to that. Um, the as far as the Pittsburgh Steelers go, there are several rumors. There's much more tantalizing and much more evident uh there's more obvious evidence out there that the Steelers were using steroids back in the day with their players on defense. Now, whether that's true or not is beside the point. The
Yeah.
fact of the matter is there was enough suspicion. And in spite of that, Chuck Noll is in the Hall of Fame and as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, I think most people believe that he should be in the Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame, whatnot, right? But if you're going to have him as a first ballot Hall of Famer and then punish Belichick for this, that's a incomplete standard. That
Yeah,
is just
exactly.
ridiculous, right? But and then to add on to that, as Akilesh was surprised, as I mentioned, how does a Hall of Fame? This is a bigger question I have, and this is just more questioning about the system. And I kind of mentioned this with Akilesh yesterday. Number one, I'm not a Patriots, like defender by any means, but the fact of the matter is,
More a hater, but
yeah, nor a hater, but there is, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I have rooted for the Patriots in three of the four Super Bowls that they've played in my lifetime. So
because
there's
he's just
that.
smart. He's just
No,
smart.
no,
He
I
knows
mean,
what's
to be
no, no,
fair,
no.
two
You
of
know
the,
what's the truth. You know what's gonna happen. You know what's the truth, and you just go with it. That's all it is.
well, to be fair, I can't say that two of the four Super Bowls they played were against my divisional rivals. So, I kind of had to root for
Oh,
them
I
one way
see.
or
Okay.
another.
Yeah. No, you know what?
But
No,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that makes sense.
But regardless, um, where was I going with this? How does the NFL only have three first ballot Hall of Fame coaches? How is Bill Walsh not in the Hall of Fame? First ballot? How is Vince Lombardi not a first ballot Hall of Famer?
There
How
we
is George
go.
Halas? How is Paul freaking Brown not in the freaking first ballot Hall of Fame
Yeah.
legacy? That to me is ridiculous. Even
Actually,
Joe
Yash,
Gibbs.
I can explain some of those. I can explain some of those. When it comes to Paul Brown, the reason why I can explain it is because the way he left the Browns as an organization as a whole, it was very, very, um, at that current point in time, the scales of the NFL were completely changing. The way he left was in a very disrespectful manner, right?
I agree
The
with
way
that, but that's the
he got
issue.
left. No, 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 Yash. See, let me explain it. I'm just see. Okay, if you look at Bill Walsh, yes, he created one of the most, if not actually, you know what? He created the most important offensive platform that the NFL has ever known. True.
100%.
But if you look at his record books, he has not been a consistent coach. Period.
Sure.
That's the truth. All right.
Sure.
So first ballot Hall of Fame for Bill Belichick, question. For Bill Walsh, it is rightfully questionable for me. I think you do have the right to question it. When it comes to Joe Gibbs, the reason why he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer was because people weren't for sure locked in that he wasn't gonna come
Of
back.
course. No, I
For
get all of that. That's what I'm saying though. But my issue with that is, and I'll let you as far as the other two go, but those situations should also never really be in question. At the end of the day, a Hall of
that's
Famer
true.
should be questioned based on their merit. There is nothing you could tell me about a guy. There is no person in their right mind that will not have Paul Brown or Bill Walsh or in
Yeah,
their top five at all.
that's
If they
fair.
are
That is
top five
fair.
head coaches, they should be in the Hall of Fame. That is
Paul
without
Brown is questionable. Paul Brown is questionable,
fine.
but
But he's at
I
least, I mean,
agree.
yeah, you get what I'm
Yes,
saying though.
yes. Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
and certainly at
Vince
that time
Lombardi's not
when
a
he was
first
in
ballot Hall
the
of Famer.
wait, say it again.
Vince Lombardi's not a first ballot Hall of
Vince
Famer.
Lombardi's not. George Halas is not.
Wow. Yeah, though that's a problem. That's a really big problem.
That's where the system needs to change. And then the other part of it is when I said the Patriots homer and whatnot. How many Patriots players? I mean, Belichick had the most dominant dynasty in NFL history. He is the greatest special teams player
Yeah.
of all time. He's the greatest kicker of all time by far, which this was something that we had talked about last year. But how does Adam Vinatieri not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
You have Ty Law, who took, I think, a year to get into the Hall of Fame. Richard
Hmm.
Seymour, who took a year to get in the Hall of Fame. Willie McGinnis is not in the Hall of Fame. Teddy Bruschi's not in the Hall of Fame. Uh,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, there was controversy that even Randy Moss was
Mike
going to be.
Vrabel's not in the Hall of Fame, and I know that might sound crazy, but Mike Vrabel's not in the Hall of Fame. He was a heck of a player for them.
Right. Rodney Harrison's not in the Hall of Fame, as you had talked about the other
Yeah,
day. There's questions now at this point with Belichick not making the Hall of Fame. Is Tom Brady going to make the Hall of Fame first year? How
exactly.
ridiculous is that we're having a
Exactly.
conversation about that? So to me, it's just beyond BS. And it's not even just for Patriots players. I mean, we talked about players like Luke Kuechly and Patrick Willis and Torrey Holt so many times on this channel. How do they not make the Hall of Fame? Something needs
Yeah.
to change about the Hall of Fame, and it's ridiculous. And it's just flat out ridiculous. And I can't believe that we're even making conversation. And in general, this has been a bad week for the um for the NFL in general, whether it's the stuff with the Giants owner. You guys can go figure that out yourself. I don't think
Yeah.
we try to keep this channel kid friendly to a degree whenever we can. So I don't think we're gonna go into that. But if you want to read up on that, it's horrifying. And then of course, if we're keeping it just more football related, I mean, how does Shador Sanders make a first ballot Hall or how does Shador Sanders make a Pro Bowl? Like, I'm ranting so much right now. I'm so upset that I'm not even able to think
No,
of
I know.
proper words. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's a possibility Trevor Lawrence probably declined the Pro Bowl, but how many quarterbacks had to decline the Pro Bowl in order for Shador Sanders? The fact is, Shador Sanders got a huge population of fan voting that got him in. He got in over some other qualified quarterbacks. CJ Stroud has been one of the worst quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks of football. I would have still taken him over Shador Sanders. That's how much
Definitely.
that's how much I don't think Shador should not have been in the Pro Bowl. It's ridiculous to me. This whole week has been just terrible of the last few things for football, and it's really damaged the reputation of the NFL in multiple ways.
I think for me, Yash, the simplest thing for me is this. Tom Brady extensively talked about it. For him, the most important thing, valuable thing for him in his lifetime as a quarterback was that year where he was just on the bench, right? I mean, I just don't get the entire idea of. I get Shedeur Sanders and people want him to do well a lot more than any quarterback that I've known ever to
Of
do
course.
well because of his history with his father, the legendary Deion Sanders. But at the same time, just I don't get it. You're putting an unnecessary pressure on him. The first thing that I thought it was LaMelo Ball, because when he came into the NBA, I mean, he was expected to be the next Magic Johnson.
Correct.
And if you really study LaMelo Ball from the NBA, you realize he's an incredible passer. His ability to make plays, he's an incredible defensive player. And this was coming out of college. But the pressure was so much on him to do great, to put him in the All-Star game, to do this, to do
I
that.
think you're confusing LaMelo with Lonzo here, right? I think.
Lonzo,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
sorry,
No,
Lonzo
I just
Ball.
wanted to be sure because I mean it wouldn't be out of the ordinary if you said LaMelo. That's why I'm
No, 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 no. My mistake, Lonzo. The amount of pressure that he got put on into that Lakers squad, LeBron was coming in at that point in time, even though he actually played pretty well.
right.
If you really look at it, he played pretty well. You look down on him so much because of what mantle he was supposed to be put on. That's
Correct.
what I feel with Shedeur Sanders. His entire Pro Bowl thing is just the NFL's way of Taylor Swifting the entire thing because the Chiefs are no longer relevant. It's just, I mean, it doesn't make any. I'm happy that they're no longer relevant, but it
Certainly.
just doesn't make much sense. Anyways, from here, what we really just wanted to do was go into the coaching carousel a little bit. Now, the coaching changes, 10 different head coaching positions have been open. Yash, I'll just come at, God, guys, I am so sorry. I've been out a while. Clearly, I can't speak for my life. I'm just gonna come at you straight. Golly geez, I
Pause.
might have to chat GBT what I have to say. Um, just who you think was the best coaching hire? You're looking at the staff that they've built so far. What are you liking? What are you not liking? Who are you most concerned about going to the season? Just your favorite, your least favorite. How are they building their staff? Take it.
To be honest, this has been a very interesting coaching carousel. Let's start off with this. There are several jobs that opened up that I did not expect, right? The Pittsburgh one was probably the biggest one that I did not expect to open up, given, we've heard for years on years and years after end that Mike Tomlin is going to get fired, he's going to step
Yeah.
down, whatever it is, and it's never happened, right? And he continues that winning season after winning season. As the old saying goes, if it's broke, don't fix it. But I guess from Mike Tomlin's standpoint, burnout definitely does play out of favor in this, and he's been a great coach for year after year, but with little result and reward at the end. So I'm not fully surprised that Tomlin did left. I think that just the timing kind of surprised me. I didn't think it would be this year of all years, but it does also make sense. I mean, this is an aging roster. TJ Watt is now on the wrong side of 30. He's seen a little bit of a decline. Cam Hayward is 36, if I'm not mistaken. So he's on the tail end of his career and he still ages like a fine wine, but still, you wonder how long it is until, he starts to decline or retire or whatnot. They don't have a quarterback situation by any means. Most people thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to retire. It doesn't seem like he has yet, but he still might. And most of this roster itself is very much in question. Um, so certainly it made sense for them to move on from there. And a lot of the other coaching jobs opened up. I think one that I was kind of disappointed, two of them that I was kind of disappointed that got let go, or sorry, actually, I'll go three, was Kevin Stefanski with the Browns. I do think he had done a great job with them, but it did also kind of make sense that they were trying to move away. My problem more
Yeah.
with that was the fact that if they were going to fire Stefanski, they should also have fired Andrew Berry, the general manager, because he was tied at the hip with the whole Deshaun Watson situation. Um,
Yeah, that's fair.
but I mean, that is that. The Cardinals one, I do think that Jonathan Gannon should have gotten at least another year. He was in a very unlucky situation in the fact that this Cardinals team has a lot going on other than the fact that this team is, not necessarily the greatest roster, but they're certainly talented. And they were on the wrong side of a lot of, um, what's it called? On the wrong side of a lot of one possession games. Same thing as the Browns. If you were going to fire him, fire Monty Austin Fort with him. So again, a little bit disappointed there, but the one that definitely stood out to me that was probably the most shocking, without a doubt, was Sean McDermott getting fired by the Buffalo Bills. Um, Especially the timing. The fact of the matter is, this was the one time where I don't think you could blame Sean McDermott in any fashion with the Bills coaching, with the Bills losing to the Denver Broncos.
What do you mean one time?
I think there are several instances in the past where Sean McDermott makes a coaching mishap or coaching decision where you can blame him more on the loss than any other plays. The Buffalo Bills are one of those weird teams where you could basically say there's not much that they did wrong, but if there's one person you could blame, it's Sean McDermott. This was the one year you couldn't blame him. If anyone you were going to blame, it's Josh Allen, right? With the four turnovers and whatnot. So that was certainly shocking. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the coaches that got left out, I'm certainly interested in seeing where McDermott ends up landing next year. But as far as the best coach getting hired, I think it's very easy to tell what that would be. As far as just a new coaching gig, it's John Harbaugh, 100%, right? This is a developmental guy, a guy who's known more than anything, not being an offensive or defensive mind, but just developing players. He developed the career of Lamar. They got a young quarterback in Jackson Dart, a young team in general, and he could very well help them. He's a solid A coach. I thought this was a great fit for them in every sense of the imagination. I'm shocked that he actually did not hire Wink Martindale as the defensive coordinator, but I do like the guy that he did hire. And I think that this Giants team, I'll be honest, especially with the questions around the Philadelphia Eagles, and their offense, although they did hire our fellow hometown kid, Sean Mannion, as their new offensive coordinator. So
Hmm.
shout out to our fellow Pleasanton kid out there. But I do think the Giants, they honestly, if everything goes right, as far as I just want to see what they do at free agency and the draft, I really could see them right now being the best team in the NFC East next year. From that standpoint, I really do think that this Giants team, they're turning a corner and a really good corner at that. And I think Harbaugh to me was the best coaching job for that. After that, the two ones that I think nailed their coach were the Falcons hiring Stefanski. Like I said, I'm a big Stefanski guy. I think if there was one guy that they needed was an offensive mind at this point with this questions around Michael Penix and whatnot. You want a guy who can develop a quarterback, and Stefanski hasn't necessarily developed a quarterback, but he did help revive Baker Mayfield's career from the dead at one point. So I think that can definitely help. Him being a play action quarterback, someone who likes throwing the deep ball a lot. I think it definitely helps that Stefanski's system would definitely help there. He likes running the ball. They got two great running backs in Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. So I think this is a great fit. I'm certainly interested. I know he decided to keep the defensive coordinator. I'm certainly interested in seeing what types of moves they make in free agency. And the other one, I think this is the best one as far as the new coaches go, Jesse Minter. The Ravens hiring Jesse
Thank you.
Minter. We had talked in the last episode about at the time Harbaugh potentially getting fired, and I do think it was the right decision for the Ravens to move on from the Harbaugh, especially when Lamar came back. There were a few games at the end of the year where they definitely struggled that they should have won that they didn't, and I think that gave enough of an excuse when they missed the playoffs for them to move on and find a younger coach. A defensive mind. They had a terrible defense last year. Minter comes from the same tree. And I know I've seen a lot of people question why you don't hire a guy to help Lamar offensively. I mean,
Hmm.
defense was the problem for this team. Lamar, I've said this before, Lamar is good enough at this point to be able to call his own plays. And even if you don't, I mean, the guy that they end up hiring, Declan Doyle, young, really good, comes from the Ben Johnson system. I really think this is one of the best hires, and I'm really interested in seeing furthermore over the next few weeks how Jesse Minter builds this coaching staff. But I love this, especially with what we're seeing with Mike McDonald with Seattle. I think the system might be the defensive system, the defensive equivalent of what the Sean McVay tree has been over the last few years. I think that system really is going to take over defenses in the NFL. So to me, those three are by far the best coaching decisions. Um, as far as the worst one, I think it's pretty out there. To me, it's Mike McCarthy. That just doesn't make sense why you're hiring a 62-year-old head coach for an aging roster that clearly needs a rebuild. I get that he can, take teams to, he can help teams kind of overachieve a little bit, but it's the same thing. This is a team that needs to move on in a new direction, and it's kind of disappointing that McCarthy would be the person to be that. I mean, he's not a rebuilding coach by any means. And really, this is just relying on Aaron Rodgers coming back, which is also not a great thing. So to me, that those are the th four head coaches that stood out. I'll talk about the other ones as we continue, but to me, those are the four that I think I could start this conversation with.
Yeah, for me, I completely agree with the worst hire being in this case, um, for me, definitely Mike McCarthy is just, I mean, when you look at the Steelers and everything that they stand for, it's very old school. And I completely agree with that. But at the same time, you kind of have to look at what is there now and you kind of have to move on. You know, you could still, ride a horse to your school, but you would rather go by car because it's going to be much faster. Either you can stick to what is there before or currently change yourself. I mean, the Steelers have been running the base cover two, cover one high defense since the 1970s. And yes, it's worked. I'll give you that. And the great coaching. By the way, what an emotional send-off. I don't know if Yashi read it. There was an article that came out on the situation within the locker room. I mean, just reading that, I got emotional. It's
Yeah.
just the amount of emotion that was there. TJ Watt was in tears. I mean, clearly the guys had an incredible impact on the organization as a whole, and
100%.
that's clearly felt. And by the way, to Stephen A. Smith, you're the fakest Steelers fan. I know. Honestly, like I don't know anybody who's criticized the head coach of an organization as much as you have, being a fan of them. But I think even him,
Brand
he
Michael
was
Smith.
quite. I mean, okay, maybe, but like openly, like the way Steve. I mean, I don't think Stephen A's ever praised him once on air. I don't think he's ever praised the Steelers once. When they were 12 and 0 in 2020, he still knocked them down. So, I mean, for me, it's just like, um, didn't mean to digress there, but at the same time, I'm just kind of like, even he was emotional when talking about the leaving of Mike Tomlin. So it just goes to show the character of the man and the amount of effect that he's had on that squad as a whole. Having that said, there's going to be a lot of changes. Our Indian brother Omar Khan, I wish the best for him, but right now he's not in the best situation. Just being open. Without a doubt, I mean, you said Harbaugh. For me, without a doubt, the best hire of the year was Jesse Minter. You know how much I love Jesse Minter. You guys know how much I love Jesse Minter. When I heard he was going to be hired as the head coach of the Ravens, I cried. But then I also realized I could become a Ravens fan. So that's not happening. Don't worry, no. But I am constantly going to root for him. Like, without a doubt, I am rooting for the Ravens to win every game except against us. And I don't, and I genuinely mean this. They can go 15 and 1 or yeah, 16 and 1. They're in the regular season, but they can just lose to us. And I will be all for it. Because Jesse Minter is, I love the guy as a defensive coordinator. He's one of the smartest guys I've seen. The way he articulates the entire defense, the way it came together with a subpar roster like us, and I'm just being brutally honest, with a subpar roster with the Chargers, he created one of the most dominant defenses over the past 2 years. Whenever any team came up against the Chargers, they were ready for something big, and he made it happen. And the whole idea about being worried about, why didn't they hire an offensive coordinator? Well, it's simple as this. Lamar Jackson doesn't need an offensive coordinator to tell him what to do. He's
Certainly.
got it on his own. He can do it. He's creative enough. I think they have to allow him to be like the Jim Kelly type of just do what you want to do and we'll ride with you.
I compare more closer to what Peyton Manning got when Tony Dungy became the head coach after I think it was Jim Moore left,
It's
something similar.
slightly different because with Peyton Manning, it's a lot more. Peyton Manning was so
Well, no,
much more
I don't mean from
vocal
yeah, I
about
don't mean from the standpoint of like that, but I just mean from the standpoint of being able to call his own plays.
freedom.
I think yeah,
Yeah,
freedom. Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair. I was just thinking about the quarterback as a whole, right? When it
yeah.
came to
Okay,
Jim
I see
Kelly,
what
Jim
you mean.
Kelly wasn't afraid to run, and he could run.
Right. Yeah.
Better than Peyton Manning, but which is not hard, but better than Peyton Manning. And
Yeah.
then, so that I really love that hire. The second hire that I was, I think quite obviously that I was really happy with was Harbaugh getting hired by the Giants. I think it's a huge break for them. I like their staff. I'm not sure I love their staff, what they've got. The Ravens have been doing great, clearly. I mean, Anthony Weaver, I think, is the defense coordinator now of the Ravens. That was a great hire by Jesse Minter. They have a young Declan Doyle as their offensive coordinator. Obviously, he's done great with Ben Johnson in that period. How he does with a different quarterback like Lamar, let's see. Again, the run game isn't as prevalent, but again, Ben Johnson is, a mastermind in terms of balance in the world of football. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, without a doubt, Sean McDermott leaving the Bills really ticked me off.
100%.
First, firing him to me it is easily the dumbest thing that any organization has ever done, and I can stand on that. If anybody else can bring me another example in terms of a coaching fire, I'd be open to it. But I think it's the dumbest decision anybody's ever done in terms of an organization as a whole. The Bills were an irrelevant, disgusting, absolutely nauseating fan base that didn't stand for anything meaningful for over 20 years. Sean McDermott comes in 9 years, he had 8 playoff seasons.
Hmm.
That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say.
Can I
He
double down on
complete.
that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I'll go further. How does Sean McDermott get fired and Brandon Beane get promoted? And let me say, I have a specific affinity for the Bean family because I'm an Ace fan in baseball, and Brandon Beane's brother is Billy Beane, the guy who's basically inspired the idea of Moneyball.
Moneyball.
So I have an affinity for that family, and yet I'm still going to be criticizing Brandon Beane here when I say this. I mean, the man, I've been, by the way, I've been on the case that Brandon Beane should be fired for each of the last four off seasons at this point. I thought he should have been fired after they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals back in 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
I remember having this conversation with my dad in the 2023 season after they lost the Broncos in the wildest game, one of the wildest games ever. And everyone was saying that McDermott was going to get fired. And I said, if there was a guy who was going to get fired at that current moment, it was Ken
It's
Dorsey, the
not him.
OC, who got fired the next day. And if
Yeah.
there was a guy who should have been fired, it was Brandon Beane. because that roster is not nearly as good as people think it is, and it's carried by Josh Allen. Lo
Yeah,
and behold, they lose to the Chiefs back-to-back years for the exact reason I say is because they don't have receivers, and they've drafted in the last 8 years two Pro Bowlers since Josh Allen's been drafted. Two Pro
exactly.
Bowlers since in 8 years. That is not a good Pro Bowl. This is a team that consistently, the only thing that they are good at drafting is first round picks. And that has diminished over the last few years. I've said this, I think I said this in 2021 to Akilesh one time. I said, if the Buffalo Bills had the, if you could take the Buffalo Bills' ability to draft first round picks and put them with the Niners' ability to draft late round picks, it would be the greatest team of all time.
Yeah,
That's no longer there because the Buffalo Bills can't draft first round picks anymore.
yeah,
They've drafted Kyer Elam in 2022. I thought he was going to be good. You're a GM of an NFL team. I'm not a GM of an NFL team right now. Although
right,
I would
right.
love to be one day, but they are this is a GM in the league who has years more of experience than I do, who drafted Kyrie Irving, who's a bust, right? Um, Von Miller, you paid 6 years, $120 million, and that fires spectacularly.
Yeah.
I want to go even more. The amount of receivers that are just one after one has just been terrible for you guys, right? Laviska Shenault, KJ Hamler, Brandon Cooks. The one guy you could have probably traded for that would have helped is Jalen Waddle. First off, I don't even understand how the Dolphins wanted to trade Jalen Waddle to the divisional rival, but you had the opportunity and you didn't take it.
You
I don't
didn't take it.
understand that, right? This is the other instance of that really I can criticize about Brandon B that I don't think most people talk about. Okay? There have been many instances, many an instance that the Buffalo Bills have had about players that have been accused of domestic violence. Now, whether that's true or not is beside the point here. Matt Araiza, Von Miller, Maxwell Hairston, the guy that they just drafted in the past year. My big
Hmm.
issue is not necessarily with that because sometimes it is the case. In the case of Matt Araiza, it seems that he didn't do what he was accused of. But my big issue was you not only are so invested in that option of, you know, getting that player, whether that's Araiza, Miller, or Hairston, you
Hmm.
go and double down on that player by not having a plan B. How do you not
Ooh.
have a plan B? Because in each of these three instances, the Buffalo Bills had knowledge of this player's accusations beforehand, before it came out to the public. If you know it's going to be a PR disaster once it comes out to the public. So how do you not have a plan B in case you have to cut someone like Matt Araiza, which the Bills ended up doing? Instead, you just put up your hands and say, "Oops, well now we have to rely on Josh Allen for another year to carry us," which is exactly what's happening year after year after year. So it just is poor leadership, it's poor management, it's poor asset management and preparation. It's just overall, I don't understand how McDermott can get fired and Brandon Beane can get promoted. And the same thing happened with Keon Coleman too, right? I mean, the whole thing about they drafted Keon Coleman, there was the coaching staff. Now Terry Pegula is coming out and basically saying, "Oh, we didn't want to draft Keon Coleman, the coaching staff did." It's just
I wanted to speak on that specifically, Yash. For me, the overall thing about this for me is, and I'll wrap this up quickly here, um, is just more than Sean McDermott being fired, more than Brandon being promoted as the owner. It's the I mean, see, for me, Yash, at the end of the day, my main point is this. A lot of the times when we've seen great coaches being fired after great seasons, it's because of the ownership. And it is a loss of the ownership. And I will connect it to another thing, which is the firing of the Vikings general manager.
Kwesi
Are we
Adofo-Mensah.
are we kidding? 2 weeks of maternity leave and we say he's done? Is that, are you joking? Like,
Right.
okay, I understand a lot of coaches have given their lives for this. They have missed the birth of their child. That shouldn't be happening. I don't care what job you have. You could be the president of the United States. You could be a war veteran in the middle of a war. You have an option to come back home, make sure your wife is okay when you're having your first child, to see your first child being born. I don't care what you have. You could be coaching the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't mind if you do that. I wouldn't mind at all if you do that. Because just like how you have a bunch of kids playing out there, you have your own kid being born and your wife also. So I'm okay with that. And it's not as though the general manager being in the building is going to create a massive difference. All right, he can work from home also. It's not going to create the biggest
And he
difference.
did in this instance
And
too.
he did. And he did. By the way, you know the way he was fired? He went to the what do they call it? The State Bowl or something? Um, for college kids. When
Oh, the
like
Senior Bowl. Yeah.
Senior Bowl. He goes to the Senior Bowl. He scouts like anything there. He comes back. It's the winter storm season in America. He enters the office. The owner calls him and he's fired. That's the way he
That's
got
wild.
fired. It wasn't even like he was at his office and they called him in. They said sit down. No, he came from working and he gets fired like that. Let me say another thing. The Vikings have been nothing but exceptional since that guy was hired.
Correct.
Just being honest, right? Kevin O'Connell has done a great job. They've honestly drafted extremely well. We can say what we want about JJ McCarthy. I'm not ready to say he's a bust yet, because no Harbaugh products are busts. But when it comes to that point where he might be a bust, who knows? But that would be the only bust that this man is allowed to be drafted into that
Right.
Vikings organization, which is a big thing. For me, at the end of the day, the only thing I'll say is this: owners have to step up and be better. You don't call out players or you don't say Keon Coleman was a wasted draft pick and Billy Bean or whatever Bean his name is. I don't care. He could be
Brandon
Mr.
Bean.
Bean for
Yeah.
all I know. Like big fat googly eyes. He could be Mr. Bean. I don't care. All I know at the end of the day is um, I'm just being honest, Yash. I mean, his cheeks look like a triangle when with the hypotenuse you couldn't even imagine. I mean, right triangles went out through the door when
Oh
he's in
my
his
God.
absolutely
Bro.
ridiculous. I mean, I don't know. His hairline couldn't be seen. Like it was insane. Watching that
I got
owner
a better
talk.
hairline than him right now, and I think I'm
You
yeah.
you had you have a good haircut. I look better than him, and if you see me on the street, you might be wondering who is this guy. That guy looked insane. He looked like Mr. Beans with glasses who didn't fit his eyes. It was just horrible. Sorry, clearly I hate the Bulls owner right now. But when it comes to the scope of things, I just owners have to step up and be better. Why do we have always some 60, 70-year-old owner who lives in World War II who just can't come
Nepotism.
up to speed? Why can't they just come up to speed and understand that
Nepotism.
this? I mean, I give you that, Yash, but at the same time, I'm just like, you're hiring young coaches. They're obviously doing well. Why don't you hire some young talent at some point in time? Why
Yeah.
don't you hire some young owners? You
I
know,
agree. No, I mean
why don't
the NBA seems to get this with the young owners and the new owners always coming out every
all I'm
10
asking,
years.
Yash, all I'll say is this. Magic Johnson is the owner, minority owner of the LA Dodgers. Ever since he's been there, have they been nothing but winning? Yes.
They won a
Ever
divisional
since,
title every year that he's been the owner.
well, I mean, Shohei Ohtani obviously felt so, hence he came there,
Correct. Yeah.
right? He comes to the Washington Commanders. They were a success the first season itself.
Correct.
Why don't you bring in players who have been a part of this sport, who have won sports games, who know the money business? For example, I know LeBron James can be hated and can be loved at the same time. He would be a great owner.
It's even further than that.
Genuinely.
It's even further than that. This is the big issue. This is a big issue in America too, not just with football. It's you consistently benefit rich people who don't own their who don't, who don't earn their stocking, the same old people over and over who are told the same old things, who usually don't have the same type of love for a sport in the case of sports as their parents did, right? And like
Yeah.
you look at like someone like in baseball, Mike Ilitch was the owner of the Tigers. His son does not have nearly the same, and he's a decent owner. He does not have the same love for hockey and baseball as his father did, right? And you see this over and over. Additionally, we need to prioritize more minority owners. We need to prioritize more female owners. We can do that if we're living in an era where people just continuously try to work for profits and screw over the employees
And
that help
female
the
owners have
organization.
been more successful statistically. I mean, I know that doesn't sound crazy when I say statistically because there's only like three or four, but all of them have been very successful.
Very much
Apart
so.
from the Saints, a lot of them have been very successful.
Very much so.
So
But
I
I
mean,
mean, I do think we should move on as far as the reason I think most people are here, which is the Super Bowl. And we'll talk more about this coaching stuff next week as far as kind of as more teams build their coaching staffs and the systems around it. But as far as the Super Bowl goes, this is why everyone is here. The Patriots are playing the Seattle Seahawks. This is a rematch of the great Super Bowl 49 from 2015, 11 years ago. We got Drake May playing up against Sam Seeing Ghost McDonald's. That is the quarterback matchup.
The
Yes,
name
that is
dropping is
actual
crazy. Okay.
that is actual meme. And we got two really good defenses and two really good offenses playing up against each other. I think this holds up for some exciting matchups. Akilesh, what do you see as being the X factor of the game or the key matchup that might decide the Super Bowl? Do you think this is going to be a close Super Bowl? Do you think this is going to be something like what we saw last year with the Philadelphia Eagles dominating against the Chiefs? What do you see?
For me, I'll say this, it's going to be a very close game. Now, how the way it will get close is two ways. Either it's going to be a decently high scoring game or it's going to be a very low scoring game. I see it as a 3-point favorite, honestly, at the end of the day. And I think for me the X factor is this. For both sides, I'll say it like this. When it comes to the Patriots, the way you will win the game is by getting to Sam Darnold. The only way you will be able to for sure win the game is if you can pressure Sam Darnold and get to Sam Darnold quick enough. That's the only way you can do it. Now, the thing that the Patriots have done really well is disguise their blitzes in such a great way. And they've done it so well for a very long period of time over the course of this season. If they can get to Sam Darnold enough, they can win the ball game. The ball game is theirs if they can get to Sam Darnold. Now, for the Seattle Seahawks, the thing I will say is the answer is not getting to Drake May. Because the problem is, if you get to Drake May, he has his ability to run out of the pocket. We saw last week, or the week before last week, um, yeah, the week before last week against the Denver Broncos, Drake May had just as many rushing yards as he had passing yards, and that was a difference maker. They just couldn't tackle him. And the Broncos defense is incredible, but they just couldn't get they even though they got to Drake May, they sacked him maybe 5 times or so. At the end of the day, he ran out in the most important situations, and that's what got them the game. I feel personally the only way the Seattle Seahawks offensively, okay, the way the Seahawks will win their game is by getting the same thing that they did against the Rams, allowing JSN to be motioned out, to be, in these confusion type of areas where when they put them, they have three receivers in a two cornerback spot and make them confused and allow JSN to be isolated. I think that's the way the Seahawks can win the game against the Patriots defense. Now, I think it's going to be Gonzalez and JSN in terms of matchup
Oh,
nightmare,
for
right?
sure. 100%.
For both of those guys, which will be, I think, probably the best matchup that we will see 1v1 this NFL season. But at the same time, I think they're going to pull JSN in so many ways that's going to allow him to get open. And for the Seahawks, the thing I would say in terms of defensively, offensively attacking the Patriots is death by a million paper cuts. I think you have to slowly make them decapitate, right? Just hit them one by one, inch by inch. And once they start going, one of my friends' dads was telling me, the thing I think that they're going to do is they're going to go with a three defensive lineman shift, and they're going to go a lot of cornerback, a lot of linebacker type of movement, and they're going to make sure that Sam Darnold doesn't have any space to throw. But again, their running game is also not something to disclude. Kenneth Walker is a very powerful running back. I've loved him for a very long period of time, and he can make some damage. Now,
Mhm.
it wasn't that great last week. If I'm not wrong, yeah, like 38 yards or something. But Sam Darnold was dominating because there was no pressure on him. And if there was, it wasn't quick enough. That's where the Patriots can win. Now, when it comes to the Seahawks defense is vaunted. It is a scary defense to play against because they're extremely physical on the line of scrimmage. And schematically, they have an amazing way of disguising, pressures. And they've done it so well for so long. The only thing I will say when it comes to the Seahawks defense that they have to match up for is to make sure that they hold Drake May in a circle. So some defenses, if you look at Mike McDonald and that kind of hierarchy, you will notice that the way they build their defense is to make sure that they've almost bubbled in the quarterback. I don't know if you guys have seen Doctor Strange, the movie. Fantastic movie. I love the movie. The way Doctor Strange, he will have this dimension where he kind of closes up the entire area and it becomes like a 3D dimension. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about
Yeah,
exactly. But that's kind of the way the Seahawks they almost disguise their defense such that they kind of put a wall in front of their quarterback. So if he is to run, they have a guy to stop him. If he is to pass, they have two guys over. So the way
my
McDonald will
Niners
build
should
that,
know.
yeah. Well, the way McDonald builds that defense is in that circular motion.
Yes,
They have to perfect it. Because the only thing sometimes against the Rams we saw this when they let that circle kind of slightly open with the inside crosses and everything, they fall apart sometimes. They
definitely.
fall apart, right? Last game was not a defensive game at all by the Seattle Seahawks. If the Patriots can pull that off and kind of break that hole in the middle, they have a chance of winning the Super Bowl. For me, I would go two predictions here. 27-24 Seahawks take the win or 16-13 Patriots take the win. These are the two scores that are running in my mind. It's going to be a low scoring game or a moderately high scoring game. I'll stop with my piece there.
So for me, I do think I agree with Akhilesh in the standpoint it's going to be either a very high scoring or low scoring game. I don't necessarily know how high scoring, but one thing I don't agree with Akhilesh here, and I don't think he really said that, but I don't think either running back in this game, either run game is going to be existent in any sort of way. These are two teams
I
that have
disagree.
really good run defenses. Not just good run defenses, but great linebackers too, right?
I
Kaden
agree,
Ellis and Robert.
but Yash, I disagree on the idea that the run game won't be relevant. For the Patriots, I agree. The run game won't be relevant. For the Seahawks, I definitely do think so. Simple reason is this.
So
Mike
you're saying the
Vrabel,
Seahawks run game as far as like Kenneth Walker goes, right?
Kenneth Walker
Okay, yeah.
will be
Yeah, I
definitely
just want to make
relevant
sure, yeah.
because the reason why I'm saying that is simply based on this. When you look at the Seahawks, they're a pass first offense, right? And the Patriots are definitely going to defend on that.
Definitely.
Now, the thing I will say is the moment they go with this three defense alignment shift, regardless of the disguises that they put, the
Definitely.
run game is going to be a lot more prevalent and they're going to dominate on the run game
Here's
for
my
sure.
issue with that. The two guys that the Patriots have as their interior D linemen in this situation are Milton Williams and Christian Barmore. If
That's
there are
fair.
two guys that are known for allowing less space than anybody in that department, it is
But
those
then
two.
you also have to recognize this. The Seahawks have one of the best, if not the best, interior linemen
I agree, and I'll
displayed.
get to that in a sec. That's one of the, but that's to me is one of the most interesting matchups out there. To me, Barmore has been a little bit inconsistent this year. When he's at his best, he's been great, right? He's
Mhm.
one of the most talented defensive linemen in the game. We know that, but he's been inconsistent. That's where I think the Seahawks can trip him up a bit. Seattle's offensive line coach is known for especially extravagant schemes, if we may, against the defense tackles who are known more for the run defense versus a guy who can pass rush. That's why they were able to stop someone like Braden Fisk and basically make him non-existent last week. Kobe Turner was the guy who was making Darnold struggle a little bit more, not just in the NFC Championship, but previous games as well.
Right.
As far as that Rams pass rush goes, to me, that just doesn't apply here with the Rams, with the Patriots, because their two interior D linemen are known more for their run defense as compared to their pass rush. Certainly, Barmore and Milton Williams can get into the pass rush, and I think that's going to be where they are more necessary. But I don't think that they are going to really be someone who's going to be focused on pass rushing as much because I really don't think that they're going to get too many opportunities. To me, they're going to be the ones who are taking up the double teams that the Seahawks apply on them, taking up the inside. And for that reason, actually, that kind of applies to what Akilesh said earlier. If the Patriots want to win, their best
Yeah.
shot is really, to me, I'm looking at two matchups as far as the trenches. To me, it's Harold Landry versus Charles Cross and Kayvon Chason versus Abraham Lucas. I don't
Hmm.
think, to me, Cross and Abraham Lucas are the unheralded, underrated, the most underrated players on the Seattle Seahawks. They've
That's
been
fair.
great all year. they've been great since their rookie year. I don't think really a lot of people talk about them, but they're two of the best tackles in the game, two of the best young tackles in the game. And Chason and Landry have been as underrated for the Patriots this year. So to me,
Right.
that matchup is going to decide a lot as to how well Darnold plays, how much time he has. Because, I look at Darnold's stats, and the big thing to me is you look at Sam Darnold, and the big issue is the fact hold up, give me a sec.
No
Sometimes
worries.
it's hard for me to pull this up, but when it comes to Sam Darnold, often there we go. Okay. So when it comes to Sam Darnold, the places where he thrives, where he's top 10 in the league, is play action completion percentage, deep ball completion percentage. You look at the fact that he has, where to go? First read throw, explosive rating, production premium, EPA, right? But then when you combine his actual QBR, he's only 18th in the league. And I think that's especially important here because based on those analytics, I think the big thing is that as good as Darnold is, he's best when he's being set up to throw in a place where, his receivers can get to, as Akilesh alluded to. And I think that's where JSN versus Christian Gonzalez kind of match up. But also, I think Darnold needs time if they want to win. Cross, Landry, Chason, Lucas, that will decide a lot. That's why he struggles against the Rams often because of their pass rush. That to me is the way that the Patriots win this game. For Walker,
Mm,
the big thing is if Walker doesn't show up in the run game, he's probably going to show up as far as screen passes, as far as getting outside the backfield.
correct.
But if there are two guys that can stop that in the league, as far as their ability to cover the pass game, that's Caden Ellis and Robert Spillane. I would be more
Mm,
confident about the Seahawks run game here if they had Zach Charbonnet, but obviously he tore his ACL a couple weeks ago. That is unfortunate. But to me, that would have been the X factor in that circumstance. That's not there. So to me, if the Patriots want to win, that's their big thing. As far as the Seahawks go, as Akilesh alluded to, their defense is phenomenal. The one thing as growing up a Michigan fan is the big thing for Seattle, and this is why I'm so excited, even with Jesse Minter as the defensive coordinator, is or as the defensive play caller for the Ravens, is they love these six matchups, which is they love these 60-61 defensive matchups with six defensive backs. What Michigan used to do a lot of the time is have someone like RJ Moten, Makari Page as their traditional strong safety. They have Rod Moore back there, and then they have three or four cornerbacks. Often one of those
mhm,
cornerbacks was not necessarily the traditional dime back, but he could play inside the box. He could play outside. He could pretty much play a long guy. And what his real job was is to cover the slot receiver in case he goes deep and then shift to whatever side of the field the main coverage was on. So say you had a
mhm,
stack of three receivers on the left side versus three receivers on the right side, he would shift towards the left and basically play like an Ed Reed type role with the Ravens to a degree, right? The guy was for Michigan for a long time. That guy was Quentin Johnson, not Johnston.
mhm,
Keep that in mind. But with the Seahawks, that guy for them this year has been Julian Love, right? They usually play guys like Reek Woolen, Josh Jobs. A lot of the times, even the guy could end up being Nick Amanwori. And I think Amanwori, his Swiss knife ability plays a lot into how well the Seahawks can mitigate the Patriots' uh, pass game. Because at the end of the day, I'm not really concerned about the Patriots' receivers. Diggs has been great. Matt Collins has been great. Keyshawn Booty's been great, but they're not JSN or Cooper Kupp or Torrey Horton, right?
Yash, one thing I would say though in regards to Sam Darnold
Sure,
is this. He's had 11 fumbles caused
definitely.
during the season, which is a huge thing actually as a quarterback, because that tells you what he's a little restless when it comes to. I mean, look, his
Pass rush,
playoff
yeah,
game against the Rams has been really good, but that overlooks what he did in SF. In SF, it wasn't that great. Although they
definitely.
crushed them 41-6, I think he had what 170 a touchdown or something like that. So he hasn't been all that great, but against the Rams, he was incredible. In
Incredible.
that game, it was a run game that had the huge effect. So more than that, it was their defense, right? And
Certainly.
they
And,
lost.
and I mean that's where he's going to struggle too, because the Patriots have a flawless secondary. I don't think there's much you can say bad about them. But when it comes to the Seahawks defense, all I'm saying is from that standpoint, they're going to give Drake May a lot of trouble, and he's going to have to create if they want to win, right? To me, the X factor for the Patriots, if they want to win, is Drake May itself, right? Drake May,
Mm-hmm.
how well he plays. He's been one of the best quarterbacks across the board. I don't even need to really bring up stats here. He's top five in every stat. Just think that, okay? He is an elite quarterback right now. He's playing like an elite quarterback. Can he play? Can he have like a Patrick Mahomes-esque game against the 49ers in 2019? Can he have a Nick Foles-esque game against the Patriots in 2017? That's the main question. He's got to play the best game of his career. There's no question about that. But to me, the big matchup when it comes to the Patriots for them to win is their interior offensive line versus the Seattle defensive line. If they play the game of their life, if specifically Garrett Bradbury versus Byron Murphy, and I think Byron Murphy will win that. Jerron
Mm-hmm.
Reed versus Jared Wilson, who will win that matchup, right? Those are the matchups to me. And I think the biggest matchup for me is Mike Onwenu versus Leonard Williams. That to me will decide how well the Patriots play as far as how well Drake May can be able to create, because that will define and determine how much time he has in the pocket, right?
Right.
That's the only way the Patriots win offensively. And as Akilash also alluded to, for the Seattle Seahawks versus the Patriots defense,
Yeah,
Christian Gonzalez versus JSN. How well do the Seahawks offensively create for JSN? I think they will.
they
But
will, that for sure.
but
But
that's also why to me, I got the Seattle Seahawks winning. And I don't think if it is a higher scoring game, I think there's a chance the Seahawks can pull away. It will definitely be closer than a lot of people think, but there are just way too many ifs for the Patriots in order to win. Gonzalez is too much of a boundary cornerback to be able to guard someone who's as versatile as JSN. Cooper Kupp is also that versatile, right? To me, there's way too many ifs involving that. I
Josh,
think Gonzalez will play well against JSN,
this is
but
all I'll say when it comes to the Patriots. This is all I'll say. They've created the most turnovers in this postseason as an entire defense as a whole. Now, I get it. CJ Stroud over the past 5 games has not been anything too excitedly to talk about. I'll give you
right.
that. But 4 interceptions and a half is not, I don't care who you are, even if you're a horrible quarterback. 4 interceptions and a half means the defense literally made you see ghosts.
But here's the
At,
thing, Akhilesh. Which teams were they playing? They were playing, and I don't mean this to discredit the Patriots, but I'm just saying it's easier to have turnovers when you're playing up against a Chargers team that doesn't really have a big receiver outside of Lad McConkey that you can continuously target over and over, or a
Josh,
Texans
but
team
that
that's missing
wait,
the
hold up, hold
Okon.
up, hold up. In regards to the Chargers, let's just make something really clear. I don't care if we didn't have the best of receivers. That never mattered when we won 11 games. That
No,
never
I get that.
mattered.
I'm not discrediting the Chargers here. I'm just saying that's a whole different thing when you're comparing them to Seattle Seahawks, who have the league's leading receiver this year.
That's fair. But at the
Right.
same time, to put it simply enough, when Sam Darnold is pressured, look at his statistics. He's under
Agreed.
150. QBR is below I think QBR was around 50 to 60 or something like that. Completion percentage was around 50 to 40 to 50%. When he's pressured the most, Sam Darnold is still, still there for mistakes. 11 fumbles is just not something you see out of a quarterback any season. And let's
Right.
not forget,
But
Sam
that's
Darnold
why
has thrown 24 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. That's not a great ratio by any means.
definitely.
He's been a great quarterback. Now, the thing I was saying in regards to JSN, the point that you made is a very good point. For sure, they don't play a defense that is based on this idea of crisscrossing,
Yeah.
right? If Christian Gonzalez is on the outside, he's thoroughly on the outside. He's not doing anything
Correct.
else, right? And that worked against the Broncos. Will it work against the Seahawks? Definitely not, right?
Mhm.
Because they don't throw many boundary type of throws. It's a lot of inside movement. So I definitely get you there. However, the thing I feel the reason why the Patriots could pull this off on a low scoring game is this. There's no team that has been more clutch in terms of pressurizing the quarterback than the Patriots have been. I mean, it's just the truth at the
No,
end
I
of the day.
agree with you, but that's what I'm saying. That's if it's a low scoring game. If it's a low
That's
scoring
fair.
game, the Patriots can win. If it's a high scoring game, though, Drake May's got to play.
That's true.
He's
And
got
he
to play
has
the
it.
game of his life. And there are
And he
just
has it.
way too many ifs for that. And that's
That's
why I'm
fair.
just saying, for me, that reason, and also the with JSN just moving around all the time like that. right? And with Darnold, I mean, the other part of it is if we're really talking about that X factor game with Harold Landry and Kayvon Chason versus
Right,
Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, right?
right.
Those are two of the top 15 tackles in the game this past season, Abraham Lincoln and
That's
Charles
fair.
Cross. If we're
That's
talking about a
fair.
guy who gets pressure, right?
Mhm.
The first player on the list, I'm looking at the list right now of guys who create pressure for the Patriots. First off, I mean, Seattle's interior defensive line creates pressure. Leonard Williams is 26th in the league. But the first guy that shows up on that list is Harold Landry, and he is at 46. Kayvon Chason not far behind him at 48. Seattle has four guys before that. So that is a huge difference as far as pressure goes for each team and for the Patriots in general. I just think that that's a major if you're relying on Landry and Chase on versus Cross to be able to generate those turnovers that can prevent Darnold from being at his best because most of Darnold's turnovers have been fumbles against teams with good pass rushes,
But
right?
Yash, the only thing I'll say, and this has nothing to do with the scheme. It
Okay,
has completely to do with the organization as a whole. Two things. Number one is the Patriots have always been doubted. There has not been a game where people said the Patriots are going to win. They've always
100.
been doubted, but they've always proven everybody wrong,
Sure.
regardless of the situation. You could say the Jarrett Stidham and stuff. That's fair. But at the same
Sure.
time, they went to Denver and they dominated in Denver.
Sure.
That's just what it is at the end of the day. The only thing I'll say to this is this. If the Patriots win, and it is a big if, because I am not, this is the first time in my life I can genuinely say I don't know what the score is going to be. I don't know who's going to win. For a Super Bowl, this is the first time I'm undecided, and I don't know.
Okay.
But if the Patriots win, this will be the greatest story ever in football. Without a doubt, it will be the greatest story that football has ever known and might ever know. For a team to go from 4 and 13 for two consecutive seasons to lose probably the greatest head coach in its history, and for a former player to come back and win the Super Bowl in his first year, that will be the greatest story in the history of mankind.
It will be an interesting Super Bowl to see. But as far as my
I don't
original,
know any
as
I don't
far
know
as my
any story
prediction
that could be
goes,
greater.
I'll just say this. My prediction, I think Seattle wins. I think it's going to be 31-21. I think that's the
I
final score. And I think
don't.
that, and hold up. Let me, before I say that, I knew that was going to be your reaction. I think it's going to be closer than the final score indicates. I just think Seattle's, like I said, Seattle has that potential with that defense to generate one turnover that might, at the end of the game, make the score larger than it actually should be. To me, that turnover is a Devin Witherspoon pick six.
Okay, I see where
I'm
we're
calling
going here.
that. And let's see if that happens in the Super Bowl.
This is the way I see the game end. All right?
All right.
And I'm going on a limb.
Okay.
I'm going to say 27-24. This is the way to land. The Seahawks are on a drive. They'll have a 24 to 24 lead. It'll be a dead tie. They'll probably have 5 minutes on the clock. They're slowly running down the clock. 3 minutes to go. They're on the Patriots 22-yard line. They're going to throw an inside slant and Christian Gonzalez is going to come over. He's going to pick it. From there, Drake May is going to come down the field, and in classic Patriots fashion, it's going to be the kicker to win the game. 27-24, I'll take the Pats. I can't go down on the Pats. You know I can't.
I get it. Hey, I
can't.
get it. I mean, you're
I
from
can't.
Massachusetts. You gotta rep.
Heart
You
of
gotta
hearts,
rep
I can't
Massachusetts.
take I can't take it down. But in my mind, I'm ready for your situation. Pick six, no, that's not gonna happen. Drake May doesn't do that. But could they possibly win the Super Bowl? Could it be a reverse of what happened? Maybe Drake May comes down the line and he throws the pick in the end zone with 10 seconds to go? Who knows? We'll only know by the
We
end
are
of
very
this week.
excited for Super
Clearly.
Bowl 60, as you guys can see. This has been a great season. As much as we wish we had done more as far as episodes go, we'd like to thank you guys for your support. We're going to continue to put out episodes, hopefully at a much larger scale. As Akhilesh alluded to, we're going to change a lot as far as our podcast goes in the next couple of months. Um, but thank you guys so much for watching today. It has been a really fun episode. And until next time, look at Akhilesh's background. That is the theme for the Winning Browns podcast, the colors. Stay tuned for more episodes on the Winning Brown podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.